Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Franchise Frontier podcast, where we explore evolving franchise landscape. Happy to be around one of our marketing people today. Chris Conlee is a director of marketing at Horsepower Brands, has been a franchisee, an area developer for a franchise, a COO of a digital marketing agency, and 25 years of marketing experience. So I would imagine he'll be able to bring us some incredible insights, especially when it comes to how we dive in at Horsepower Brands. So welcome, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Chris, if you could just briefly describe your role at Horsepower Brands and kind of in a nutshell, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so for me, I manage a team of franchise marketing coaches. Our goal is to support the franchisee, not just in the beginning when they're getting their business started, but be by their side through onboarding, through open and continue operations. The real goal there is for us to be that third-party independent voice to bounce ideas off of, to do the litmus test on is this too good to be true, and really try to create a holistic marketing approach for their business. Small businesses in particular, not just franchisees, they struggle because marketing is a key component of their business. Most people aren't marketing professionals, and they need that guidance in order to try to make their marketing dollars go farther. And really, we say that it's the fuel behind growing their business, and it's key that they protect every dollar that goes out the door.
Yeah, I would imagine that marketing is it's some aspect, it always is the secret sauce. I also imagine that people think they may have a much more detailed understanding of marketing until you really get into the aspect of what all gets involved in marketing. I know that franchise business coaches are a major deal for support for current franchisees. So with your team of franchise business coaches, on average, how many different franchisees does one marketing coach possibly support?
That varies. We have coaches that are specific to brands. Some of them are larger, more developed brands. But the great part about my team is that we're one of the organizations that cross every brand. So we bring knowledge from not just a specific brand, but maybe even a specific market. So everybody that's in Dallas, Texas, or everybody that's in Nashville, Tennessee, we're able to see what's working best in that market, in that brand, and in a specific community, and bring those expertise across different brands. The coaches themselves, I think a better judge on that, we're trying to have about 15 calls a week with franchisees at one-on-one independent time with a franchisee. And so when you do the math on that, we're doing a couple hundred calls a month with franchisees to give them that expertise and give them that one-on-one time that they need, that they deserve, in order to really focus in and hone in on what's going to make their marketing successful.
So in a nutshell, that being said, and we talked about how vast marketing can be, right? There's obviously digital, there's analog, there's all kinds of things that come into marketing. If you could put, not necessarily the job title, but explain to us a little bit what the franchise business coach for marketing, what does their job entail? What are they there to do? And then, obviously there's some of those things that need to go up the chain or whatever that might be. But if you could describe specifically what the franchise business coach for marketing is going to do for me, the franchisee.
Yeah. So we break it down in some pretty bite-sized, easily consumable approaches. We want to be that third-party voice, again, giving some independent guidance. We want to help the franchisee navigate and know the tools and resources that are available to them. Horsepower does a great job of providing a lot of resources, but when you're a brand new small business owner, you forget. You don't remember that oh, this resource and tool is available to us. So we want to make sure that we help the franchisee navigate all those resources, and then we also want to make sure that we're keeping them up to date. Marketing, especially the digital marketing landscape, does change very quickly. And so when new resources, new vendors, new tools, new approaches to marketing present themselves, we want to make sure that we're communicating those new advantages to that franchisee as an opportunity.
And so talk a little bit about your previous franchisee experience and how that has led to possibly a better partnership when you have discussions with franchisees, when you talk about coaching your coaches, right? To that point, how do you feel like that relationship and that previous experience has helped you to where you are today?
Yeah, so it really stems to my why, and why, there's a couple different components there. I worked for a company that was 60,000 employees, and it was really hard to get anything done. Um, and what I have found is I love being in that small business environment. I love helping a small business owner make incremental success. And when they look back at it, it's like, well, I'm not where I want to be, but look how far I've come. So being a small business owner myself, what really resonates for me is how important these conversations and this support can be. When you're a small business owner, a lot of times you feel like you're out on an island, even when you're in a franchise organization. And so, me being able to help my franchise marketing coaches dive in, and you asked earlier, what is our role? Our role can depend upon what the need of that franchisee is at that day and time. We can be a counselor, we can be an expert, we can be a doer. It really depends on what that franchisee needs. And as a small business owner myself, another thing that I focus on, how important it is, again, the dollars that they have to spend for those marketing activities. So I gained a lot of credibility when I was in the digital marketing agency space, when I would tell a business owner not to spend more money or not to do something.
Right.
And I think we get in our society in some roles where we're always saying, well, you got to do more, you got to do more. You got to do what's smart. You got to do what's right for your business. So we really focus in on that from our coaching role to not just do a cookie cutter playbook. Yes, there are resources. Yes, there are playbooks that Horsepower has done a tremendous job creating, but that then has to be customized to that business owner's strengths, weaknesses, and the challenges they're seeing in their market.
Yeah, well said. I think that when you talk about horsepower brands and you talk about the reach of the 9 brands that we currently house under our umbrella, I would imagine, as far as a logistics and marketing, it's probably a little bit of a logistical nightmare, right? Because you're not fine tuning the marketing for one demographic area. With this, if you all you had to do was talk about HVAC in Florida, it's very specific, right? I made a joke today with somebody that was here from Florida talking about HVAC, and I said, we also have heat. I know it's not just an air conditioner group, but I think it's incredible and probably a testament to the whole marketing team that some of these tactics need to be able to be somewhat strategically moved to different demographics, from a North Carolina to a Utah to a Denver to a Texas. And each one of those takes an adjustment, right? It's not a puzzle piece that fits here and that same puzzle piece fits there. There's always an adjustment. And I think that I would imagine, and I'll let you talk about this, I would imagine that at times that might cause some frustration with a franchisee, as if to say, haven't you done this before? But it's, I always joke around with people, if you and I worked at the same desk and I was an 8 to 5 and you were a 5 to 10, and one, I work more hours than you, but either way, and I was right-handed and you were left-handed, I might adjust the desk differently for me. And I think that every time we move that marketing puzzle piece, it's adjusting the desk. And I think there needs, what is your thoughts on how that puzzle piece gets spun and moved into a different location? And to be honest with you, like on average, I don't know if there's even a number. Like sometimes is that an easy step to be transposed, or is that something that always is a calculated move and sometimes it needs to be reallocated altogether?
So I'm going to answer this question a couple different ways. A little bit of background about myself. I'm an analytical marketer, and sometimes people look at me and they say, "What is that?" Marketing's creatives, right? They draw pictures and
So they think, right? Correct.
I'm an analytical marketer. Give me a good spreadsheet and a pivot table all day long. And so when you're talking about the challenges, the nuances of individual markets, individual businesses, and so on and so forth, like I mentioned earlier, our marketing team has done a great job of creating these playbooks and creating these resources. The huge advantage of a franchise is that we get to test faster. We get data across multiple locations that allow us to see averages and trends faster. Now, like you said, if I'm just doing marketing campaigns for a singular location in South Florida, an HVAC, well, I'm going to have a tremendous amount of data about hot weather environments, but I'm not that doesn't going to translate very well to Minnesota. So we develop our tools, our resources, our recommendations to that. We try to develop to that mid-level, that 80%, right? But then that's when we have to take that and break it down to your individual market. What I tell most franchisees is that digital, for example, digital is a consistent. Everybody's going to be on a digital platform. One of the things that a franchisee is going to have the most impact on their marketing has actually more to do with their traditional community marketing. How are you going to represent your business, your brand inside of your community? And there's a lot of different ways to go about that. So us as a marketing team, we're going to give you keywords and budget strategies and platforms to utilize. But then how do you want to represent your brand, your business in your market? And that can be the most impactful. It's the long-term play. And I love Simon Sinek. Love his Start With Why. If you continue to watch some of his more recent things, he talks about the long game. And building a brand, building your business in a community is the long game. It's not a 2-year process. It's not a 3-year process. It's the everlasting process of growing that business. Whatever your end goal is within owning a business, you want it to continue, whether it's to continue and run it for 20 years or grow it and sell it in 15 years. You have to have that long-term vision. And marketing really plays into that, where you can take the knowledge of a franchise base, you take the knowledge of the mediums, the platforms, and execute at a strong level, and then customize how you want your brand to be perceived at the community level.
Yeah, I think, to your point, you talked about Simon Sinek. I can only attest to it to coaching. But everybody wants to score a touchdown, right? We want to score a touchdown in business. We want to make the most money. But if you can reel it back in and focus on getting first downs, if you continue to get first downs, eventually you're going to run out of room and you're going to get a touchdown.
Yeah.
So I think that as you look through that kind of stuff, and I think franchisees as they navigate through that, I think it's probably difficult. But at the same time, when you create a why, create a mindset, understand the structure, have your franchise business coaches working with them weekly to help them understand we're all working toward the common goal, I would imagine that it goes around a lot smoother.
Yeah. One of the biggest challenges that we face from the coaching team and from a marketing perspective in general is the constant battle of the long-term marketing play versus I want leads or need leads tomorrow or today. And if you only, I like to say this a lot, if you focus on the bottom of the funnel you're going to stay at the bottom of the funnel. And that's where your most expensive, most competitive leads are going to come from. If you don't grow the brand awareness in your marketplace, if you don't grow the community awareness of your business, you're going to stay at the bottom of the funnel. You're going to pay the highest price for those leads. And so we constantly have to remind small business owners, play the long game, build the awareness. It will return X-fold in the down the road if you're doing those things to begin with. And so it's always that constant battle in the business world of immediacy versus long-term vision. But we've got to continually preach the long-term vision.
It's funny you say that. I posted something on LinkedIn the other day, and it mentioned everybody needs you. They just don't know who you are yet.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton to be said of, people call that organic lead strategy, organic lead gen, those type of things. I feel as if that's just you being proud of what you're doing, proud of your business, proud to be part of your community, proud to be in your community and give back. You hear a lot of people when they go through the franchise process say, I want to be able to give back to my community. I want to be able to set up a legacy for my kids and whatnot. And then they get into the marketing and they say, I don't have enough leads or something to that intent. But to your point, I think the more that your team and I think all of us that come down to from Horsepower Brands can preach and have people really understand that the long game of the organic lead strategy is probably the most successful game. And at the end of the day, will help them to get reviews and those type of things, right? Which leads me to my next thing, right? I know that everybody talks about, if you get through the marketing, you've got through the job, you've got that. Every commercial you hear talk about, this company has X amount of 5-star reviews. So when you talk about the importance of reviews as you see it, talk to us about how you see that from the marketing standpoint behind the curtain and how that helps people drive business.
Yeah. So I mentioned community a few minutes ago, and with the digital world that we live in today, community is no longer your the 4 blocks around your house. It's no longer the 2-mile radius around where your business operates. Community is in a digital environment as well. We've really focused in on a small business getting reviews, whether it be Google, whether it be Yelp, whether it be Facebook, all of the different platforms, even the Angies and networks, all of those different platforms, reviews have become the barometer for those platforms to know whether or not they're putting the right businesses in front of their consumers. If you think about this, Google's main goal is to put the right business, the right solution in front of their consumers. But Google's not, they're not the one purchasing the items. They're not the one, selecting the service provider. So how do they do that? They use technological algorithms to say, okay, well, this business exists in this area. They say they provide these services. And the barometer then is the customer review. Are they getting reviews? Are they getting consistently reviews? Are those reviews positive? Are they negative? But then they continue, as Google continues to do, to get smarter and smarter, and they're reading the reviews. So when the consumer that's in your marketplace that is searching for your services selects you, leaves a positive review, and then gives detail about the services you provided, all of those things are signals to Google, to Yelp, to Facebook to say, yes, we have put the right solution in front of our consumer, and we're going to continue to put the right solution in front of our consumer. Now, the one part about reviews, and it's the thing that sends shivers up every small business owner's up their back, is the negative review. Oh my gosh, I got a negative review. And I'll tell you, as sitting on the consultant side, on the agency side, I've had to walk many of small business owners through that process. But it's completely different when it's your business. I remember the first negative review I got on my business, and it was like, oh my goodness, how could somebody think this? But what's small businesses don't step back, and what businesses in general don't step back and think is it's actually an opportunity. It's an opportunity to show that your digital community, you care, you're monitoring your reputation, and that you're trying to make it right. So whether it's a positive or negative review, those platforms allow you to engage with your consumer and showcase future consumers, not just that you do the services you say you do, but you care about the results and you care about the consumers you've worked with in the past.
Yeah, it goes back to the old saying, right? You never get a second chance to make a first impression. I think that it's incredible that you bring that up, because if you are a new business owner, there's no steps that aren't going to be looked at, right? Whether it be the way your installers look, the way they dress, the way they act on the job site, all of those things, every portion of the customer experience is important.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point also, if it is a negative, if you take it as a chance to get better, right? If you take it as a chance to get better, then you're going to continually get better, and you can then review, you can respond to that client and say, I really appreciate the feedback. We will do everything in our power to make sure this doesn't happen again, or something to that extent, which then shows people that, again, you're not a robot, you're human, and you're understanding that you need to make concessions for things that go incorrectly. To your point, in the digital world of today, when you talk about reviews or those type of things, if I'm going to take my wife to dinner and I want it to be an Italian restaurant somewhere, I'm going to Google it. I'm going to go on TikTok and look, and I'm going to listen. And the crazy part is everybody listens to what everybody has to say, because everybody has an opinion now, right? But to your point, those reviews now have become a much more powerful marketing tool, because of the fact that everybody leans so heavily on Google, their cell phones, and those type of things.
As a consumer, let me ask you a question. Do you read the positives or the negatives first?
The negatives.
Exactly. And that's why it's so critical that we don't be afraid of the negative reviews and handling those and showing that that we care and that we're trying to make it right. I like to call, whether it's the review platforms, the social media platforms, I call them validating sources. Long gone are the days where, for those that are old enough to remember Tim the Toolman Taylor and his neighbor Al across the fence, peering over and talking. You don't do that anymore and say, "Hey, where'd you take your wife for dinner last weekend? Was it any good?" You go to those validating sources on social media, like you're talking about, and so it's key to be present on all of those. As much as you can,
right?
Certainly pick the ones that you feel like you are most impactful for your market. Yelp is a great example. Yelp is really strong in some markets, not as much in others. So you really have to pick and choose where you are visible and where you are showcasing your business. But when you do, make sure you whatever you create, you're able to monitor, you're able to respond, and you're able to control the narrative of your business on that platform. Because, like I said, the social community is the digital community anymore, and there are usually consumers fall into one of two buckets. They either look at the positives or like myself and yourself, go to the negatives.
Right.
And so you got to make sure that you're addressing both the top and the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we lead into that digital world, that digital, the Google world, let's talk about convenience. When you talk about how do we lean into convenience through marketing to help our franchisees provide the best customer journey possible through convenience?
Yeah. It's not enviable to be a small business owner these days, because in a lot of ways you can get stressed out about, well, my consumer is here, there, and everywhere. But the simple aspect of it is you've got to be able to speak to the customer where they're at. You've got to, and what I mean by that is, I used to joke around. My 86-year-old grandmother who owned 2 homes, you weren't going to find her on a digital platform. So you got to speak to her where she's at. Myself, myself and my wife, we've got 3 kids. We're running around all the time. We want convenience, a text message, a chat on a website, the ability to book online quickly. Those are important features to us. But we're of the generation that still likes to have a phone call every once in a while. Maybe
Right.
before you show up at my front door, I wouldn't mind having a conversation with you. And then you've got the generation that just wants that text. They don't want to have the phone conversation. So as a business owner, you have to be where your customers are at. Horsepower's done a really good job. And it's always evolving and it can always be improved. But we've done a really good job of integrating our websites, our technologies, our platforms to be able to, whether that be request a phone call, request an email, send a text message, book online, all of those features, which are really expensive. I think most small business owners when they don't really realize how expensive it is for that technology to exist. Now it's getting cheaper every day. That's terrific. But the second that it becomes cheaper, a new one appears and you have to integrate for that as well.
Right.
So Horsepower, all of our websites, we have those functionalities. We have that capability to speak to the customer the way they want to be spoken to and the medium that they will choose to have that conversation with the business. And that's extremely important because long gone are the days where, Coca-Cola and IBM tell you to do something and you do it the way they told you to. That just doesn't happen anymore.
Right. I think the other portion of that's interesting and why I believe it's important to have as many of those tools as possible is you say it's important to be able to speak to the customer where they are. And the truth of the matter is even for myself, where I am is going to change very quickly.
Certainly.
I can't tell you how many chat bots I've been on and then thought to myself, man, I didn't get an answer on that. And it's me. I didn't respond. He said, how are you? And I didn't even respond to him, And I think with that ever changing landscape, you're right. I can get onto a chat. And if it's something very simple, I can get it answered and I feel really good about it. There's also times where the communication maybe just isn't there, right? Sometimes it's an AI chat bot and it just isn't working. I need a phone call. I can't tell you there is a website that I have interacted with and they are an AI website. It's not ChatGPT. It is an AI website, but the fact that I can't get somebody on the phone to answer a very basic question drives me crazy. So to that point, I can completely understand where, from the franchisee's perspective, because they have this power of the franchisor, they think that all of these tools are you just plug them in and they work. But at the same time, I can also see the value that Horsepower brings and the marketing team brings by making them available. I think that's a testament to understanding your client as well and just saying, hey, at the end of the day, right, we are the franchisor and these are things that our subgroup is telling us is important to them. We need to make the investment to do something like that.
Yeah, 5 to 10 years ago, most of us were extremely frustrated when we picked up the phone and called and got the phone tree decision, the automated voice. We were frustrated. 2, 3 years ago, AI and chatbots, there was frustration. They weren't getting it right. I wasn't getting the answer that I was looking for. The speed in which those types of tools are improving is dramatic. Now, there is also a business and consumer gap in reality. They're still evolving. AI is still improving, but the more utilization it gets, the better it gets. We ourselves at Horsepower, we've invested in the AI, and we continue to monitor it. So it has to be looked at as a tool that unchecked doesn't get better. So when we look at AI, we look at our queries, we look at our the questions that didn't get answered, and try to make sure that we're informing our tools to improve those results. Because now AI and the automated components, there's a generation and there's a segment of the population that's all they want. They don't want to talk to a person. They don't want to have to hunt a 50,000 page website to find the answer, that they want to quickly type in a result or a question and get a result.
Give me the cliff notes, right?
Yes.
I think also another portion of that you spoke to a minute ago that I think is valuable is when you're a franchisee and you're dealing with a franchisor and those type of scenarios, it's important to know that whether it be marketing, sales, lead strategy, whatever it is, that the things that you're being provided for the most part are tools. And I think there's a huge differentiator between a tool and an answer. An answer means this is the only way that it gets done. And I think when you talk about marketing, you talk about franchising in general, a lot of times franchisees are looking for an answer and they don't like that the fact that they have to accept that there's a tool that can help them find the answer that works for them. But that answer is not, it's like we talk about the puzzle piece, right? So it's interesting that you say that those things are a way to look at our tools, because that's in essence what we are giving the franchisee is as many tools as we can to help them reach their why and get to their end goal. But they're not answers. They're just tools to get there.
Yeah, to lay out 100% baked in solution for every small business owner would, in my opinion, be an error, because the great aspect of franchising is, and we say this a lot around here, is locally owned, nationally backed. And you, as a small business owner, the reason you go join a franchise system is because of the processes, the tools, the learnings that have come before you. But it still needs to be your business. You have to make decisions on how you want your business to function in the side of your community. And so to make the assumption from a marketing standpoint that you need to do this cookie cutter exact process every time takes away the individuality. And the reason behind most entrepreneurs getting into starting their own business is they want to say so. They want to create a reputable brand, a reputable company in their community. And how they go about that is as unique as the number of individuals in a franchise. And so we have to give a large number of opportunities and tools to every one of those franchisees, and then they need to select on how they want to utilize them and how they to best grow their business.
Yeah, that's like when you deal with an IT problem, it doesn't matter how high up or how low on the food chain, the first question they're going to ask you is, have you restarted your computer yet? We know that leads to the time to figure out what's going to happen. So in the phone calls that your teams are making daily, weekly to support franchisees, what would you say are some of the most common obstacles that franchise owners deal with, and what can be done to overcome them?
Oh, that's an interesting question, because like I just mentioned, it can vary depending upon every franchisee. We try not to make the assumption on any call we get onto. Now we certainly we have goals and initiatives ourselves, and we want to make sure that we're again informing franchisees as to what's going on, what opportunities, any updates. The most common problem, or the most common question we get is, I talked to such and such, and this is doing phenomenal for them. Should I do it?
Or how do I implement it?
How do I implement it? Should I do it? Should I use this service provider? One of the things I tell franchisees all the time is, when you open your doors, you're going to probably get solicited more than you're going to get people trying to buy from you. And one of the things that we try to do is to cut down on that by having pre-approved vendors, or having a stable of providers that, we may have 6 preferred digital providers, or we may have 3 or 4 direct mail providers, or whatever the case may be, that allows you to not have to go down the process of vetting an agency or vetting a provider. Doesn't mean you can't bring somebody to your own to the table, but we've tried to cut out a lot of the legwork for them. Other things that they struggle with is, the right spend amounts, right? How much should I spend? Where should I be spending it? that's where myself as an analytical person is like, okay, well, what's the goal? You'd be surprised how many times somebody says, I did a billboard or something along those lines, but I didn't get any leads from it. Was that the goal of the billboard? So we constantly remind business owners, what was the purpose behind the marketing activity? And are you evaluating the true metrics for that marketing activity? If the goal was to increase brand awareness, then don't judge it on leads. If the goal was to drive leads, let's judge it on driving leads. So again, that's the independent side of the sounding board that we try to offer.
Yeah, I would imagine that in marketing, you have to be much more dialed in as a franchisee, as the business owner, to the why I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine also that if you have a strategic plan and you're able to answer those questions of what we're trying to get out of X or Y, you would probably get much less pushback or frustration, because if you only looked at it for, if, to your point, if the point of the billboard was to drive brand awareness, which really not necessarily, it can't be tracked unless you're talking about website reach outs or whatever that might be. And you don't know. But if I look at that, I was putting this billboard up for brand awareness, and now I want to wonder why I don't have any more leads. 1 does not equal 2 on there.
Correct.
So that's it. That's important. And I think that is something that probably should be talked about more, probably is something to almost start every conversation with. Like, let's have a plan and a process for what we're trying to accomplish with said spend or said tactic, which probably would lead to a lot more intriguing conversations as far as that. So that's interesting, and that's a good one to think about.
Yeah, we run into, we have a couple different types of franchisees and small business owners. You have the ones that are very cautious. They want proven results. They want proven providers. Then you have the ones that want every new tactic and every new opportunity that rolls along, they want to jump in on it. And there's pros and cons to both. When you don't take risks as a small business owner, it's hard to get the big reward. The flip side of it is when you're constantly taking the risk, but not allowing it time to develop, you're moving off of a tactic, you're moving off of a marketing tactic that you didn't give enough chance to see if it really worked.
I feel like
And
our conversation just swung from franchise marketing to investing of money, right? Or the stock market. It seems they definitely correlate in terms
They
of
do.
that. I joke around, but my mom is that way. She would rather have money in a savings account that does nothing forever than put it away for 5-10 years and make money on it, because it doesn't register with her. Her view through that lens is a right now view. And I would imagine when you talk about marketing, there's the right now view, and then there's the long game, which is what you talked about earlier.
Yeah, and we really do, focus on the long game. But we also have to remember, entrepreneurs and franchisees in their nature are already risk takers to an extent.
Right.
I mean, to take the leap of faith, to bet on yourself and to go out and do your own thing, even with the support of a franchise system, is still a risk taker mentality, which is terrific. So, back to the reason behind my team is we have to balance that. We have to balance that of saying, okay, you're jumping too much, you're taking too big of a risk, or you're not putting yourself out there far enough.
Right. So for you in 2025, what marketing tactic, what marketing thing from Horsepower are you most excited about in 2025? I know we have some partnerships coming up. We have some things that we've been doing behind the scenes that are just starting to come to fruition. Howie's one of those things. Habitat for Humanity is one of those things. So speak to that a little bit about on 2025. What are you most excited about?
Yeah. So for me, marketing really is simple. And I always, again, I come back to Simon Sinek and his start with why. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And when a brand, when a company, when a business owner has a deeper suited or a deeper reaching meaning behind what they're doing, it just shows through. And the partnership that Horsepower and Howie have developed with Habitat for Humanity, it speaks naturally to the Horsepower brands. Habitat for Humanity is one of the largest home builders in the country. Our home services network of businesses perfectly align with that, and it allows us to really give back to the community, not just at a national level, which, $100,000 commitment is a large national level, but also at the individual local level. So when small business owners and franchisees can go in and say, I'm supporting local Habitat for Humanity through Horsepower's, initiative. It really speaks to the consumer, and it differentiates us. It gives us a platform to really convey our why. That's more than just I'm here to do a service for you. I'm here to support the local community, and this is the way that we're going about doing it. As far as some of the other, Howie, I'm really excited about Howie and the development that Horsepower is putting around that, because it speaks to the larger nature of the community within Horsepower. It's going to give us a platform to not just be a single service provider, but really take care of the homeowner in its entirety. I'm really excited to see where that goes, where Howie takes us in the future.
Awesome, Chris. Well, we're excited for that in 2025. Thank you guys again for joining us on the Franchise Frontier podcast. Want to thank Chris for coming on and giving us some great insight to the marketing structure and the way things go at Horsepower Brands as far as support. So thank you for that.
Thanks for having me.
We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Franchise Frontier podcast.